My name's Hannah Johnson, and I'm currently a creative at a digital agency called La Red. As she briefly introduced, I was also one of the 15 women selected for the See It, Be It program last year, and I got to know these wonderful women in the front here who have been really inspiring me with their talks as well. So that was amazing. And for me, it's been a real roller coaster. So when I saw this incredible film that Marion had put together earlier about Cannes, I was super inspired, and I thought, I'm going to go to See It, Be It, and this is going to change my life. And I'm going to come back a new woman. I'm going to come back and just change things in my industry. I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to convince people to change their mind. And I got back, and I realized my head was way too advanced for society. So I had a bit of a downer and realized that I had to basically keep moving. And I sort of started, we heard a lot about learning to live each other's dreams and follow the dream that you want to strive for. And I found this job that I wanted to apply for. And for me, it looked like the perfect job for me. It was like what came first, the job description or my profile? And I applied for this job, and I took this process for 3 months. I was in this interview process. I had 6 interviews, and I had to build a presentation and present it to 9 people, 3 of which dialed in per conference call. And so they were like oversized in this room. And that was an incredible experience. And I left thinking, I've done it. I beat myself at my own game. This is exactly, I've definitely got this job. And so I waited and waited. And eventually I got this email, which basically said that they'd canceled the position because they'd had a change of strategy. And suddenly all these dreams and visions I had about going to this incredible new workplace were shot to pieces. And it was completely independent of me what happened. It was just a decision from the executive side of this company. But being a typical woman, I thought the following: oh my God, I am not good enough. Was it something I did? Was it something I said? So I started to try and find the mistake where I am. And this is something that a lot of women would do. And I spoke to another guy who'd applied for the similar company, or even the same company. And he said, the man, oh, I applied for the same company, and they canceled the job on me too. They're all such idiots. They're missing out, and they don't know what I've done. And I was like, how come the guy is like blaming the company and I'm blaming myself? But the thing is, I've done this before. So I've had like the opposite of Shanaz, who always knew she was going to be a designer. I never knew what the hell I wanted to do. So as a little girl, that's me chasing after my dream boy at the time, by the way, and him legging it as fast as you can go. But I gave it my all. So I knew at a very young age exactly what I wanted to be. It would just change every time. So if people asked me what I wanted to be, I'd be like, yeah, I'm Hannah. I want to be a pilot. I want to be an architect. I want to be a scriptwriter. I want to be a mathematician, an astronaut. The list went on. And this indecision, this inability to decide what I actually wanted to do, followed me all through my life. So I basically, when I was young and I got a bit older, I did 13 GCSEs and 5 A-levels because I didn't want to miss out on anything. And that's the only way you could have like a win-win-win Win, 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 win situation, as if you literally don't miss out on anything, right? And then I studied politics at university, because that was kind of the course that combined everything, right? And then I realized I had this scholarship to study at Cornell University, which was an incredible experience, and I panicked. They said, you can study whatever you want. And I was like freaking out, so I went for the obvious choice and decided to complement my politics degree with relativistic astrophysics. So there was a point when I was like sitting at home in the school halls, and I was sitting in this as like 21 years old, and in this astrophysics class there were like 14-year-old maths genius that knew the answer to the questions before I'd even like knew what the question was. There was that moment where I was a bit like, what am I doing here? But I never knew the answer. I just didn't know where to go. And so after I graduated, I basically fell into something really obvious choice. I didn't want to destroy this thing called my future career, TBD. And basically ended up falling into investment banking. And I started as a credit derivatives broker. Looks like it suits me, right? So I carried on doing this and for about a year, and then through doing this, I at least worked out what I don't want. And I got to know a few people and connections through this process, and literally through this investment banking process, leveraged it to create an opportunity for me. So I eventually decided to start my own business. And this business, I got investors on board who were going to support me to start this company. And this company went for about 3 years, and this was the first time that I actually felt like I'd found my purpose. So I launched the first content customizable student news website, where students could log on and see news that's customized for them based on universities. I launched a national student lifestyle magazine with an incredible team. And finally, a bill splitting tool for students. You can see my investment banking knowledge come in there. And I loved it. I had like a small team, and it felt like freedom, because I had the freedom to decide. But slowly, circumstances changed. Slowly, it wasn't my business anymore, but I was working for my own business. As it went on and it had to go through rounds of funding, my equity decreased and decreased. And suddenly it wasn't the agency or the company that I had in mind. It was no longer my vision. And then something happened, the 2008 credit crisis. And the whole academy started to shudder. Everybody literally legged it. And my advertisers that were financing the business literally ran out screaming in panic, just like the rest of London, which literally lost its collective shit at that time. And I was left standing there in the middle of a credit crisis, unable to find work. So I'd started this business, and I was desperate for it to succeed, but I was applying for jobs, and it was like, oh, you should have studied a marketing degree, or why didn't you do this maths course, or this whole diversity that I thought was going to be this fail-proof strategy was suddenly my biggest weakness. And so I did what any self-respecting woman would do, and that's I legged it myself, and I moved to Germany. Because it was that time, I was running against so many walls, and really trying so hard, but I was getting nowhere. And suddenly these questions were back in my mind. Oh my word, I'm not good enough. Was it something I did? Was it something I said? So I was blaming myself for everything that had happened. I decided it was my fault that I'd let down my team. Maybe there was a point where I blamed myself on the credit crisis, because actually I was working in banking at that time, so yeah, I was taking responsibility for that. And I was just really questioning myself and my self-confidence. That's a gift of me starting in Germany, because the next step I did was go back to school. I moved to Germany and I started studying German. So that was my way of getting some space, getting some distance. And I studied, and I soon sort of basically got bored and applied for jobs, and I was like, well, had my own company, started that up, and I sort of liked doing brand building. That was the fun part. I liked this creative part and not the orga stuff. So I basically went to land in advertising. And initially as a strategic planner, brand consultant, and eventually even as a creative. So even when I started in advertising, it wasn't clear to me what I was supposed to be doing. And for me, the only way to really work that out was to try it. And constantly throughout this whole journey, every time I've had a knockback, I've been asking myself these questions. Oh my God, am I not good enough? What did I do wrong? Is it something I did? Is it something I said? But that's just not what it is. Sometimes it's not your fault. And it is okay to question yourself, and it is okay to feel not confident. And the problem is that we're expected to make the biggest changes when we feel the smallest. So we don't apply for new jobs or new challenges when we're feeling strong. We're like, oh, this job's really fun, I don't need a change. It's only when it starts to go wrong that we decide that we have to make a whole new perspective, and we're feeling small. So as part of this presentation, I just did a couple of points which I wanted to share with you. Like, after this fail on the job of my dreams that I applied for, what advice would I give myself today? Or in other words, how can I stop myself blaming myself? Or shut up that negative voice in my head? So, sounds simple, you've got this. I am often reassured when I look back at my life and I'm like, oh my God, I have survived so much shit. And I have continually reinvented myself over and over again, and I'm always coming up, breathing for air, if not succeeding. So just look back in your life and be like, oh, this is exactly what I want to do, and I can do this, no matter how small you're feeling. And if you're standing at crossroads, make a decision. Every single decision will take you somewhere. And it will never be the right decision, because it will never be the wrong decision either. Any decision is, in some ways, good for something. And don't be afraid of where this journey will take you, because it's not the goal that's important. It's basically the journey itself. So often you start taking a new job and you're like, oh, in 5 years' time, where is that going to take me? Is that going to deliver my goals? Is that my perspective? Is that the right choice? Well, no, that just holds you back. And in the end, if you can learn something on your next step, then take it. Have I done something here? It wasn't me? Talking about failure, tech fail. Have you guys got that? Yeah, this is my next point. Don't fear failure because it doesn't exist. So, so recently there's a lot of glamour around failed tech startups. I can tell you there is nothing glamorous about it. It is shit, you feel awful, and you have to get through that. So there is nothing oh, amazing, you're such a hero, you feel awful. And the way to get through that is just to be like, if someone thinks that it's a failure, then you just have to take a step back and be like, okay, that's your perspective. In my perspective, nothing is a failure. You can only succeed in your life because you've tried it and you didn't take anything. And that is not about failure. It's just about moving forward and doing things your own way. If you've learned something from it, it's not a failure. And this is a point I often, because I've been very ambitious and very driven, I'm often like proud of what I've achieved. But I think that it's much more important not to be proud of what you've achieved, but proud of who you are. So it's not necessarily about winning the next Cannes Lion, and you shouldn't be really disappointed if you didn't get that goal that you really wanted to have, because that is not relevant. And you can just look at yourself and be like, okay, I am the person I want to be, and every day I'm going to work on being the person I'm going to be. And I can be proud of that. And finally, don't rewind, restart. Keep moving forward.